What is going on, everybody? My name's Chris. Welcome back to Bourbinsane. Got a little different setup here. I'm in front of my computer today, but I wanted to get some breaking news in the industry to you as quick as possible. Buffalo Trace just announced an addition to their Sazerac lineup, Sazerac Full Proof. Now, for us rye whiskey fans, this is actually a really big announcement. Buffalo Trace has recently done some extensions to their Sazerac line. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But if you're a rye whiskey fan, especially a sweeter rye, Sazerac's always been that for me, and this could instantly become a fan favorite for people. So let's jump into a little bit of a background on Sazerac Rye. So Sazerac is probably the most prolific rye whiskey there is as far as Buffalo Trace goes. For those of you that don't know, Baby Saz is the base expression, so the 90 proof option of Buffalo Trace's rye whiskey. It's also the younger version of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, two different ones. So the Thomas H. Handy, which is a barrel proof expression, usually 6 to 8 years on those, and then your Sazerac 18, so 18-year-old rye whiskey. So the Baby Saz is kind of the precursors and the preludes to that. Much younger, obviously, but that's a little background. Long standing has Sazerac been the go-to, I guess, cocktail rye whiskey, if you will, for bartenders, especially all throughout Kentucky, but really all throughout the nation. If you think of a cocktail, there's even literally a rye whiskey cocktail named after the whiskey. So a Sazerac, Sazerac cocktail. So that's pretty cool. Recently, Buffalo Trace announced an extension to this Sazerac line. So they had the Baby Saz, which is the 90 proof. They recently announced a 100 proof extension, which I have not seen anywhere here. I know it did pop up a few places in New York, so that's what I have seen just on social media, things like that. So I'd be curious to hear if you guys have seen that at all yet. But their newest edition now that was just announced today, about honestly like an hour ago, is the Sazerac Full Proof, which is going to be a 125 proof whiskey. So if you think about this is kind of following the trajectory of the benchmark lineup a little bit. So Buffalo Trace's benchmark, which is their bourbon, not rye expression, but bourbon expression, they've got, 5 different expressions now. The single barrel, top floor, small batch, full proof. I'm sure I'm missing one too. So, bonded. So this is kind of following that expression. Sazerac's got the 90 proof entry level one, the Baby Saz. 100 proof, which is kind of the equivalent to the bonded. Now they got the full proof expression. And retail is actually very, very affordable, $39.99, which is amazing. In the press release, Buffalo Trace has stated that this is not going to be a limited expression. It's actually going to be a part of their base lineup, and it's a part of their recent expansion they had. So they put $1.2 billion into expanding their distilling equipment, and they're building more rick houses, and this is all part of that. So they're saying this is going to be a shelfie that's available everywhere. Curious to see if that actually holds true. We know how Buffalo Trace's distribution and allocation is, but I'd be really curious to find out. So let's talk about the tasting notes on this and age what was discussed in the press release itself, see what we can kind of expect out of this full proof version versus the 100 proof version and the Baby Saz. So I'm going to read off some of these tasting notes that they discussed in here. So Buffalo Trace described it as a bold aroma of rye spice, fresh dill, and smoky oak. So that's very interesting, and that's on the front end of the palate, they say. When I think about Sazerac or Baby Saz, I don't think of any kind of smokiness at all. Like, it's a very Buffalo Trace flavor profile forward rye. What I mean is a very sweet rye. Like, it's a very, very sweet rye. And Buffalo Trace, their mash bills in general are very, very sweet to me. Splenda sweetness. So when I think of Sazerac, I don't associate it with any kind of like heavy rye spice or smokiness at all. So that's very interesting. I'm going to be curious to see if that holds true. Sure hope I can get a bottle to see. Then they say, surprising touch of sweetness, the spice kicks in, which makes sense. You're going to get more spice, especially on rye whiskey, at a higher proof, like, full proof. And we can't imagine it's going to be very aged at all. Floral and herbal notes take over, and then a good amount of oak, it says. That'll remain to be seen, I guess. Light, peppery, warm finish, and if you're fans of the 90 proof, you're going to love it. It's just more amplified, it says. So that'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm not going to be really convinced until I get to try a bottle myself and find out if that's true. I can guarantee this is going to be a young whiskey, like probably 3 or 4 years, maybe at the most. 125 proof is great, but as mentioned, Buffalo Trace did announce it's got a retail value of $39.99. If it's actually going to be available and truly a shelfie, like they're saying it's going to be, the problem is Buffalo Trace and Eagle Rare Bourbon, both of those are shelfies, supposed to be shelfies. And they're not. They're limited distribution. We all know that. I don't know whether it be distribution or allocation or people holding back bottles, whatever. So in the beginning, I absolutely anticipate this to be a highly marked secondary priced bottle. Hopefully that's not going to be the case going forward, if it is on the shelf, I'm kind of seeing that with things like your Wild Turkey 1018 year recently released, and I can find that at my local Meijer all the time. They have it. So that's great, and it's state minimum, $45. So that's great. Hopefully they're going to follow that trajectory, the benchmark trajectory where those are all available. That whole lineup just hit Michigan, so it could take a while for these Sazeracs to trickle into Michigan, my market. But throughout the rest of the country, I do hope this is going to be something you're going to see on the shelf and not have to pay crazy money for it. So one interesting thing that Buffalo Trace is doing from the 14th of November to the 16th of November, so just for 2 days, but for just $10 at the distillery, you'll get to try a sample of the 90 proof, the baby Saz, the 100 proof, full proof, and actually the Saz 18. So four samples for $10, and you could pay quadruple that and have it be a great value just for the Saz 18. So if you're around Frankfort, Kentucky, or you're around the Kentucky area, might be worth taking a trip over to Buffalo Trace to try that lineup, that flight for $10. Probably going to be very busy, so get there early and let me know what you think. Okay, so let me give you my quick Bourbinsane breakdown and my thoughts on this recent news. I think this is actually a great move for Buffalo Trace if they're going to follow the words they're actually putting in their press release. Rye whiskeys, especially high-proof rye whiskeys, have been taking off, going crazy in the market right now. I just got this today, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Rye, and this, now keep in mind, this is a 12-year-old rye, but this was a $75, $80 bottle, something like that. So very expensive, and if Buffalo Trace can hold their full proof expression true, 125 proof, that Elijah Craig rye is only 108, but the age is the difference, But if they can hold it true at $40, and they're alleging it's going to be a shelfie bottle, it's going to be available for all of us because of their upped in production and their increase in capacity, the money they've invested into Buffalo Trace. So we'll see if that's true, and if it is, I think it's a great idea. Rye whiskey's really exploded over recent years, and I only anticipate that to continue. Just from my own personal experience, I used to be just a bourbon drinker, no rye at all. It was too much for my palate. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I've really expanded into rye. Love the flavor profile the kick it gives you, and it gives you completely different flavor profiles than bourbon does. So I've definitely become a big rye fan. I want to hear what you guys think about this. Do you actually believe Buffalo Trace this is going to be an available bottle to almost all of us, all markets, that kind of stuff? Or is this going to be something that once again is going to be almost impossible to find? An allocated bottle in the stores do get it, they're just going to mark it up crazy. I want to hear from you. If you can find it, are you going to be picking it up? Do you agree with me? Have you been expanding into rye more than bourbon lately, or kind of just 50-50? Or are you still bourbon all the way? I want to hear from you on that too. I appreciate you guys watching this. Thank you so much for being here today. Stay insane.